So, I was told to start a podcast multiple times. I lied. I wasn't told to start a podcast. I wanted to start a podcast, and I just had no one to start a podcast with. So now I'm all alone on my podcast. However, I was told a good idea for it would just to be to play Gmod, and ramble the entire time. So, oh shit. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play Gmod maps, and I'm going to ramble. And I forget the name of the I forget the name of this first map. I actually do not remember. But it is, I think it's Liminal Dreams, I think. Liminal Things, something along that line. This is our first map. We're gonna be playing this. I think I've played it before. I don't actually remember. I feel like I have. This feels familiar, but I think that's like literally the point of liminal space and liminality, of being like a sort of a place you remember or a thing you remember, but like it doesn't hold that much space in your brain. So it's like, it's all liminal. Ooh. I think like the actual definition of liminal is like an in-between, which like would make sense for like a lot of like this type of structure, which is like hallways and stuff, and you know, it's an in-between from that area to this area, and but like a lot of people associate pools and, you know, this type of structure that's really weird, but also you've totally seen it in real life, to be liminal. But I think that falls more into like weird core and that type of aesthetic. Less liminal and more like dream sequency. I really like both of like those themes, and I like them. I think they're great. Well, who put their fucking trash here? Anyways, I think that liminality as a concept is really fun to explore, because you basically have like infinite choices that you could make, because something that's liminal to one person might not be liminal to another person, but might be super liminal to another person. So it's really interesting to see what different people find liminal. Personally, I have a phobia of water and bodies of water like this. Even though you see me happily splashing around in it, I'm actually scared of it. And I find this very liminal feeling because it gives me an uneasy feeling. Like, stuff like this, I find to be very, I guess, liminally, because it is something that I've totally witnessed in a dream before. Oh, I broke it. So, I think it's really interesting to see what other people find liminal. I think like a pretty common one is, you know, what people call the pool rooms and many of the levels within the Backrooms, which, oh god, I could go on hours and hours of rants about the Backrooms, because it's like, the original concept is just a big, massive, like I say underground. It kind of gives the feeling of underground because there's no windows, but like a complex that is just absolutely huge and massive and incomprehensible to the normal person, and is completely empty except for you. And I find that concept to be less terrifying, more interesting, because there's so much horror that could be done with that. There's like an infinite amount of horror that you could take out of that and put into your own series, which a lot of people have done. Kane Pixels did that. I'm pretty sure he's directing a movie now. He was like 17 when he made it, so like, that's really fucking cool. But like, a lot of people have taken it and made it into short stories and, you know, copy pastas and stuff like that, and I think that's equally as cool. Seeing, you know, people be creative about it, it's pretty interesting. I have to sneeze really bad, and it's not coming out. Oh, this is the worst. Oh, jeez. But like, it's really interesting to see where people take concepts like this, because there's so much you could do with it, but there's also so much you could not do with it. Like, the original story for the Backrooms is that you clip in and you're all alone, and that's it. That's where you die. That's the end of your story. So sad, try again next time. But a lot of people have taken that and they've kind of, transitioned it from this, you hop in, you're dead, you hop out, if you're lucky, and they've turned it sort of into, like, more than that. Specifically with Kane Pixels, I feel like is the biggest example you could look at currently, because he has gone from taking this really simple idea of the Backrooms and kind of morphed it into this giant story about a company that is akin to Amazon in a way, in which it's this overarching, like, massive company that has huge political power. And, they're taking advantage of the Backrooms and trying to, I guess, in a way, colonize the Backrooms. It's such an interesting story. I highly recommend anyone who's interested in the Backrooms to, watch any of Kane Pixel's work on it. I believe he's actually done more projects since then that are not related to the Backrooms, but I feel like the Backrooms one is probably his most recognizable story. I feel like it's really interesting to, see how people take it. And, like, me personally, I do have my own opinions on the Backrooms, and I do have my own stories for it, but I might delve into that just a little bit. But, like, I have my own ideas, I have my own stories. I don't necessarily have, the same ideas and stories as Kane Pixels, but there are pieces of mine that do take from Kane Pixels, because the Backrooms is such, like, a large and, like, easy to develop story, right? Like, you have this pretty simple, standard, basic, there's a bunch of hallways, there's a bunch of rooms, there's nothing in there, they're all alone. And that's such a perfect base for horror, right? And so a lot of people make horror out of it. Some people make comedy out of it. Like, if you've ever watched a Charlie Slimesicle video, he's done we got stuck in the Backrooms, playing video games about the Backrooms, and they're pretty entertaining because you have, like, these characters that you place in the Backrooms who already have humor, and then they make everything funny, and they call the monsters fun names. It's like, it's really interesting. I think it's a testament to the internet that we're able to take such a simple idea and kind of mold it into something much larger. And I think it's really cool. I genuinely think the Backrooms is, like, a super cool idea. And I guess I'm going to be talking about that for the rest of the video. Even though I told myself I'd ramble. And I didn't specify what I would ramble on, but here I am, rambling about the Backrooms. I genuinely enjoy aesthetics like this. Like, when I was really little, my family would go on trips a lot. I went to summer camps all the time. It was super fun. But, like, we would stay at hotels that have, like, this kind of aesthetic. Like, weird patterned walls and funky colored carpets, and it was really interesting to me. Because, like, I had grown up basically in, like, a couple houses, but they were pretty generic, pretty standard. So I had never really seen, like, oh, what different colored carpets could be. Which is such a pathetic thing to never see. Like, that's such a lame thing, right? But, like, it was interesting to me. I was a kid. I liked going to new places. So I think it's really interesting that people are able to kind of re-invoke that feeling of going to a new place and seeing a new thing, even though you've just been wandering the same halls for, like, 10 minutes. I think that the Backrooms as an idea is just very interesting. And that people being able to kind of take that idea and spread it and mold it into these different concepts is really fun. And I think it's really good for creativity in specifically Gen Z, that we're able to take that and do stuff with it. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Kane Pixels is literally directing a film. That's really fucking cool. He's like 17, 18 now, I think. And that's, like, so neat that he's able to do that. I'm totally not jealous, right? But, like, I think a lot that comes in line with that is that Gen Z totally grew up on horror. Like, even if you yourself, as someone who's in Gen Z, never fully engaged in a horror community, you know what Five Nights at Freddy's is. You know what Baldi's Basics is. You know what Bendy and the Ink Machine is, right? Those are horror games. You've definitely seen someone play it or mention it, right? Like, there are these concepts that are pretty much ingrained in a lot of people aged like 16 to 20, I guess would be like a decent gap. But like, you've totally seen stuff related to it. You've 100% seen some sort of YouTuber, or maybe even a friend of yours or a sibling. You've seen them engage in that type of culture. And, you know, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty big nothing burger of, oh, you've totally been in some sort of horror franchise. But like, a lot of people grew up on it. A lot of people have spent a lot of their lives, you know, consuming that type of content. I know myself, I have spent a large portion of my life with Five Nights at Freddy's. In fact, I'm gonna go see the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It's pretty ingrained in like our society now for children to be engaged in horror content, and on one hand that's not good. Like, on one hand, probably we shouldn't be exposing 6-year-olds to snuff films. Just a maybe on that one. But like, there's also the creativity that comes from it. Personally, I really like horror, so I create horror content. I do it on the side for fun. So it's like, I grew up on it, and now I'm attempting to recreate it because I liked it. And I think that's, like, something a lot of people have done. And it's pretty, like, ingrained in our teen, young adult society now that we have spent so much of our lives consuming horror content. And are we a bit jaded to it? Probably. That's probably not a good thing. But, like, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, all those other YouTubers who play horror games, Astral Spiff, you know, they kind of inspire us, and I think it's really cool that, you know, a large majority of, you know, our young adult society kind of grew up on the same stuff and has, you know, similar ideas and opinions on these things, like, oh, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't that scary anymore, but like, I was terrified of it as a kid. And that's a sentiment I've heard a lot of people say. I've said it before. I used to be terrified of Foxy. Now I just really enjoy the designs and find the new stuff not as spooky. And that does come, like, with some issues, because there are going to be people who's like, oh, nothing's scary anymore, blah, 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 blah. But, like, you just have to find the right thing that scares you. I know, I personally am freaking horrified of stuff like Subnautica. Like, does that come, you know, that's because of the, oh, it's the phobia, yeah. But, like, there's also so many things people have done with Subnautica that have been pretty freaky. Like, Leviathans and stuff like that. People have made fan art for it, fan animations, and I've seen them, and they make me freak out a little bit. There's just, like, if you're not finding anything scary, find something scary. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, super fancy, but, like, if the Backrooms unsettle you, consume Backrooms content, instead of complaining about nothing being scary anymore. I think that people would really benefit from being creative, and, you know, taking the horror media that they like, and, you know, pushing it a little bit further. I think Baddington is one of the most recent examples I can think of someone who's taken the, you know, FNAF-esque IP and has, you know, kind of pushed it further into the realm of horror, which is, like, really cool. There's always a lot that you could do with existing horror IPs to create more horror. Fan games and Five Nights at Freddy's has been, like, hand in hand for a long time. The first ever Five Nights at Freddy's fan game was a Gary's Mod-esque shoot 'em up, which, that's pretty funny. But, like, you know, Jollibees, Juniors. I don't think I could say Juniors. I think Juniors was, like, canceled or some shit. But, like, there's so many FNAF games. A Bite Out of Freddy's, or A Bite at Freddy's. Whatever that new one is, it looks really cool. Back to Bloody Nights. Like, there's so many fan games and fan content that you can just enrapture yourself with for hours and hours. And I think it's good that people, are going out of their way to create this fan content. I feel like, I said that a lot. I said I feel like, I say that too much. But, like, I genuinely feel like that, I don't know if anyone actually remembers it. Because it was, like, such a quick trend. But I felt really passionate about it. The Grimace Shake trend, where teens and young adults would buy a Grimace Shake, drink a Grimace Shake, and then create, like, really short horror short films of them getting murked by Grimace. And, like, that's such a silly, goofy concept. That's such, like, a really dumb concept. Oh, yeah, you got killed by Grimace. Haha, funny, family-friendly mascot killed you. Wow. That's pretty in line with stuff like Baldi's Basics or Treasure Island or stuff like that. But people really took it and, like, made this, like, pretty impressive stuff out of it. Like, there was one I saw, it was a group of guys, and they were at a park. And they created, like, this really nicely done horror short film, and I wouldn't really call it a horror short film, but I have, like, no other words I could use to describe it, in which, the cameraman and all his friends and all that got just absolutely destroyed by Grimace in gruesome ways. And I feel like that's such an interesting thing that you could, like, just do with this really simple character. And, like, the same thing happened to the Backrooms, and, Baldi's Basics was pretty bland, but people took that and did quite a lot with it. Like, Baldi's Basics was basically a joke, and yet people, like, had all this horror surrounding him, and I think it's really interesting. Like, I don't know, I really enjoy horror. I really enjoy, the concept of being able to explore horror. I think it should be done way more than it is, especially by younger people. Obviously not, like, 12-year-olds younger, but, like, reasonably young adults, Like, I feel like the more young adults get into the horror scene, the better it is. Markiplier, he's fairly young to be a fucking director of a fucking horror franchise at this point. I don't think Iron Lung can be considered a franchise. But, like, come on. Iron Lung, really? He's directing a horror game movie? And, like, in recent years, video game movies have been fairly popular, and they have been getting better. The FNAF movie looks fucking amazing, right? You have all these, IPs. The Backrooms movie is supposed to come out eventually, and people are hyped for that. And, like, I am too. I'm super hyped. I'm so mega excited to see, what people can do with, horror and stuff like that. And I think it's exciting. I think it's really exciting. I think people should, explore that more, because it's such an opportunity that we have right now to be able to take horror content made by young adults and push it as far as it can go. Because, like, when are we ever going to be in an economical state in which we're able to do that? And not to bring up economics, but, like, there's a reason the Great Depression and, all that stuff afterwards, there were some booms in, fucking entertainment and shit. Which is, like, such a out there take of mine. But, like, I feel like recovering from COVID, we're going to have a lot of, new stuff coming out of, like, young adult filmmakers. We already have. Kane Pixels already exists. Markiplier has already done In Space and, A Heist With and all that shit, and it's so cool. And I think it's good. I think it's really awesome, and I really love horror, and I really love the Backrooms, and I am hyped. Yeah. That's my rambling. Is that 20 minutes of- Is that 20 minutes of me rambling straight to the back? Oh god. I'm probably gonna upload this with, like, very little edits. Probably no edits at all. I'll just add background music. Fuck it. It's a podcast. I don't know what to name the podcast. If anyone has name suggestions for the podcast, tell me, because I think it'd be funny. Anyways, this is what the map looks like. I'll probably add and post the map name, and like a link to the map. It's very interesting. I've played it a few times, I think. I'm like, I have more memories of it now, playing through it all the way. It's just like an explore map, which is like a kind of map I really like. So, if you want the map, I will link it in the description. Yay! Okay, that's it. I don't want to talk anymore.